Project management concepts may seem tough at times, but not to worry. You have a coach who makes it as easy as ABC. Here he is to set things straight for you. Your friend, Phil.
Hello, my awesome project managers. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. This is a very quick forum for you to ask any questions you have about the PMP exam. I'm going to be going through roughly 10 burning questions that students have asked about the exam in 2022. So let's jump into those, and as you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. All right, or after the fact, you can drop them in the comments. All right, here we go. So let's take a look at these questions one by one. Very first question, is Agile all I need for the PMP exam? No, Agile is not all you need for the exam in 2022. For the exam in 2022, just as PMI often says, you need Agile, hybrid, and predictive knowledge. So Agile is not all you need. Focusing on just Agile, it could hurt you, you see. So I would recommend balancing it up with reading the Agile practice guide and then reading the content that you find in predictive project management, such as in the PMBOK guide, 6th edition. I have to be honest though, when you're talking about which PMBOK guide to focus on, whether to focus on this one or whether to focus on this one, this or this, as far as predictive is concerned, yep, you probably are not hearing what I'm saying. As far as predictive is concerned, this is the one I would recommend focusing on. But again, the exam is not based on rote knowledge. So you could even still read everything here and still find it difficult. You need to come to an understanding of what predictive project management is all about, how it flows. But I have to tell you this, the mindset doesn't change. The mindset for Agile versus the mindset for predictive is still people focused. It should still be value focused. The way you go about planning the project is different. The way you go about executing the project is different, but the mindset should always be one of collaboration, should always be one of value. That's the stuff that's going to be tested on the exam, all right? So going to number 2, question 2, should I study the 6th or the 7th? My recommendation is that you understand the framework talked about here, the 5 process groups, the 10 knowledge areas, the 49 processes. It gives a very robust understanding of how project management could flow from either direction, whether predictive or agile. So I would recommend understanding this as a framework. As far as the 7th edition is concerned, I would recommend that you watch my videos here on YouTube. I've got about 2 hours, 20 minutes of one video and about 1.5 hours in another video. I would recommend that you watch those. As far as what to focus on here, I would say definitely know the principles. You know, the principles are pretty straightforward and they map in many ways to the Agile Manifesto values and principles. But as far as what else to do with the 7th edition, honestly, it's not much, to be honest, right now. I mean, I would say you could read a little bit about, I like the metric section about what to measure. So the measurement performance domain, you know, it has good industry knowledge. I would read that. But if you are on any of our training courses, don't worry because I cover everything you need to know implicitly. All right, so picking up the book and reading it cover to cover is not really going to yield that much. It's not going to pay you a lot of dividend. I wouldn't recommend like going crazy reading this and then going crazy reading this. No, it's not going to pay you very much. What you could do for this one is read from page 555 forward and understand the 49 processes, okay? And if you're on one of our training courses, we cover this anyway, so you don't really need to do a whole bunch of work. You know, a lot of the stuff is done for you in the class. All right, question number 3. How many of the 49 processes are on the exam? I would say each one of the 49 processes could be mixed with other processes and tested in different ways. Instead of focusing on the 49 processes, I would rather ask the question, which knowledge areas do you expect to find on the exam? And the answer would be all of them in some way. Integration will be tested, scope, schedule, cost, they will all be tested in some way. Remember, they're just areas of knowledge. So you could be given a question about risk from a scope, schedule, cost, quality perspective, and it's just interwoven in many ways that are hard to explain. Okay. Number 4, how should I relate to ITTOs? Inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs, how you should relate to those, just understand them. Know what they are, understand what they are. When you come across an input, know what it is. They're very straightforward. They're either a document or a plan. The outputs, that's it. It's a document or a plan, or it makes reference to contents of a document or plan. Let me give you an example. So, schedule forecast. Schedule forecast is inside a document. Those are your predictions about how the schedule will end up. SPI, CPI, CV, SV, those are down to the moment, down to the month, down to the day kind of metrics. Those are also examples of what could be in your outputs. Documents on page 89, plans. And again, you don't want to cram these to say, oh, this comes from here. That's not going to help you very much on the exam. On the CAPM exam, yes, but on the PMP, no. Number 5, how many Agile frameworks should I know for the exam? Well, as far as how many you should know, I would definitely recommend the top 2 or 3, I would say. I would say definitely know Scrum. Understand Scrum backwards and forwards, inside out. Understand how the philosophies of Agile help with Scrum. On the exam, you're going to be tested more on the mindset of Agile as opposed to the intricacies and technicalities of the frameworks. So my recommendation is focus a lot more on the mindset. Kanban, understanding that it's flow-based versus Scrum that is iteration-based, is going to help as well. And understanding some of the hallmarks of extreme programming and feature-driven development. Those are easy to grasp, right? XP is covered well in the Agile Practice Guide to the degree you need for the exam. So I would say just go read that up, all right? If you're just coming in, we're taking a look at questions that people have in 2022 about the PMP exam. I'm answering about 10 of these questions. If you have any question, drop it in the comments and I will answer it as soon as I can. All right, let's take a look at our next set of questions. Number 6, should I attend a boot camp or study on my own? This is a good question. So attending a boot camp, it's fast-paced. And you got to be careful about the boot camp you attend, because some boot camps are just death by PowerPoint. They kill you with PowerPoints. You probably don't want to attend a boot camp like that. Attending an accelerated course such as the ones we do, those are not done in boot camp style. Those are done with a lot of marination, a lot of discussion, fleshing out content, asking questions. We stop intermittently to answer questions. You are asked questions. We show you questions and ask you, what do you think? Is it A, B, C, or D? And then we explain and discuss. Those boot camps that are well marinated, where the content gets into you, those aren't bad. But boot camps where it's just like a death by PowerPoint, miserably, hopelessly ineffective, don't attend those boot camps. Unfortunately, sometimes your company may pay for such boot camps. I may ask you to attend them. But in the long run, what you're getting out of it is law of diminishing returns. Every day you go there, you feel like a lamb being led to the slaughter, bombarded with slides. No. Now, studying on your own, if you are very good at focusing, concentrating, you're self-motivated, there's actually nothing wrong in going for studying all on your own. You got to understand who you are. Some folks cannot study on their own. They don't make a lot of traction. They've tried it. They've failed. For those folks, I'll say jump on a course like the one we put together, projectmanagementmasterclass.com. And it's a masterclass. It's a real-world discussion of sorts where we really get our hands wet, get our feet dirty with all of the stuff in project management, predictive, agile, hybrid. So if you are trying to comb through 35 hours of video alone, you must be really determined to do it. And it could be a very boring and lonely walk if you're not engaging with colleagues, with people going on the journey like you, which is why I would really recommend taking a look at projectmanagementmasterclass.com. Number 7, must I go for an ATP course? So an authorized training provider course, must I go for one? No, you don't have to. So Praizion was a registered education provider for going to a decade, but we did not translate to become ATPs because we wanted freedom to be able to train how we wanted. And our method is very different. Our slogan is Real World Project Management Training Solutions. So the way we prepare our materials, the way we discuss, the way we flesh out stuff is very different from anyone I've seen. We give you a healthy dose of Agile, a healthy dose of predictive, a healthy dose of hybrid. It's very different. So you don't have to go for an ATP course before you go for the PMP exam. All right, so go on down and check out our content. You can attend our courses. Number 8, are Agile projects eligible for the PMP exam? Why not? They're projects. Actually, when you're submitting your application, they ask you which approach was your project. Was it hybrid? Was it Agile? So there's nothing wrong in using an Agile project. Think about it. Agile projects follow the same areas of knowledge. We may not call the different sections processes or process groups, but they're just that. You initiate Agile projects, you authorize them, right? From the stakeholder, the product owner, it gets authorized, and then you begin to identify people who the project could affect. Those are stakeholders, and the product owner had better know who those people are. And then you plan. The product owner and stakeholders plan at a higher level, the vision level, right? The product roadmap level, and then the team begins to flesh out the plan into some sprint planning, and there's backlog refinement, there's a daily scrum. All of that is planning. And then you execute, you do the work. It's the team that does it. And the team is monitoring and controlling. How do they do that? Everything. All those ceremonies that we do, they're all for monitoring and controlling and planning as well. Your daily scrum, your sprint review, retrospectives. So you just got to think about it for what it is at face value. It's initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling. We don't talk about closing out a phase, but the sprint comes to an end and you move on. And hopefully you got your PSI or your MVP at first, and then your PSI, and then you aggregate those PSIs and they become a release. So there's really nothing extraordinary about Agile projects that says, oh, you cannot use Agile projects for your PMP. No, you can. Okay? For those of you who are just coming, we're taking a look at burning questions that people have for the PMP exam in 2022. If you have any questions, I would like you to drop me a comment below and just putting it in here. Drop a comment if you are enjoying what you're hearing. It's helping you think better. Just hit that like button and keep following the channel. Let's go to our next one. Number 9. Must I read the Agile Practice Guide before my exam? In my mind, absolutely. You really should read the Agile Practice Guide because it's a treasure trove of information for your PMP exam. I know there's some things in the Agile Practice Guide that are talked about differently, spun in a different way, but you're with the PMI, you're taking the exam. Know what their book says. It's their only book on Agile. Why wouldn't you read it? Or I should say, one of their only books on Agile, because since they acquired DA, they've got a whole bunch of other books on Agile. But really just focus on the Agile Practice Guide, okay? That is going to help you in your studying. It's going to get you into that mindset that you need. Like talking about mindset, PMI's unique continuum of life cycles. I cannot tell you how many times people have said, oh, that continuum, I'm glad I read it. So iterative, incremental, predictive, Agile, you got to understand that page 18 and page 19. The table, you got to know that for your exam. So why wouldn't you read it? The Stacy model talked about on page 14, you got to know it. Their own unique spin and blends on things like servant leadership, page 33 forward, hybrid project management, page 27 and 28. Also the contract types, page 77, I believe it is. Go forward, all sorts of pages are very relevant in that book. So number 9, must I read it? In my mind, yes, you should. Absolutely do. All right, number 10, how do I plan my studying? The material is all over the place. I agree. The material for the PMP exam, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I totally agree with you. I'm going to show you an idea about how you should study this content. I think you should focus on Agile first of all, because Agile is so dominant on the exam. When you focused on Agile, I would then recommend going over the 10 knowledge areas and really knowing each one well. And then when you finish with the knowledge areas, I would recommend understanding the lens of hybridization. What does it mean? And to really get hybridization, I'm going to show you what you should be reading. You should be reading the PMP exam content outline. You've heard me talk about it so many times on this channel. But if you're not reading the content outline, you're making a mistake. Why? Because your exam is based on it. Your exam is not based on a PMBOK guide. Your exam is not based on the Agile Practice Guide. It's based on this thing right here. This thing I'm showing you right here. All right. So my recommendation is that after you're done with Agile, you're done with predictive, go for a dose of hybrid and just do this. Just this. Take a look at every one of these tasks and ask yourself, how do I tackle this in the world of predictive? How do I tackle it in the world of Agile? Does it matter how I tackle managing conflict or leading a team? Okay, it might matter how I lead a team. How do I lead a team in the world of predictive where there's centralized leadership? But how do I lead a team where there is decentralized leadership? See? How do I lead a team where I'm a servant leader? So everything that you've got here, ask yourself, how do I do that in Agile? Is it different? Okay, what about supporting team performance? Are there any things that are accentuated in the world of Agile? Yes, you should give the team the support they need by giving them that autonomy. We typically don't give the team autonomy in predictive, fully plan-driven projects. We usually have a centralized person and they're told what to do and thou shalt do this, and they're not pulling the work to themselves. You see, it's different. So you got to have an agile mind, a predictive mind, and a mind in the middle. So if it's hybridized, it may not matter that much, or it might be a blend of both. Go through this entire document and ask yourself, how do I do things in Agile? How do I do things in predictive? How would I do this if hybridized? Take a look at this one. Execute the project with urgency required to deliver business value. What is business value? Who thinks about business value in the world of predictive? Okay, maybe it's the sponsor and stakeholders. Who does it in the world of Agile? More of the product owner. How is it done? How are opportunities assessed? How do we examine the business value throughout the project? In the world of predictive, in the world of Agile, in the world of hybrid. Ask yourself those questions, and the more you ask yourself, the more you're going to be able to dig for answers in the Agile Practice Guide or the PMBOK Guide. Remember, in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, there's a section where it talks about CTTCs, concepts, trends, tailoring, and considerations for Agile. That is why I tell people, if you really want to know more about Agile and you're looking at this as containing more Agile, you're mistaken. Just search how many times the word Agile or Scrum appear here compared to the concepts, trends, tailoring, and considerations for Agile. It's solid across all the knowledge areas. So that would be my recommendation. If you read the CTTC sections in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, going over this is going to be easier. I'm telling you. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example so you really know what I'm talking about. So this one, number 3, right here, right? Assess and manage risk. How do you determine risk management options? How do you roll in the world of Agile with risk? The Agile Practice Guide talks about it as well, but it's really a dupe of what is in the PMBOK 6th edition. So what do I mean by that? Well, the concepts, trends, tailoring, and consideration for Agile in the 6th edition is exactly what you're going to find in the Agile Practice Guide. So let's read on page 400. Page 400 in this book, the 6th edition, it reads, high variability environments, by definition, incur more uncertainty and risk. You see that word, uncertainty? Be familiar with it. To address this, projects managed using adaptive approaches make use of frequent reviews of incremental work products and cross-functional project teams to accelerate knowledge sharing and ensure that risk is understood and managed. Risk is considered when selecting the content of each iteration. You see the language? So these questions could dress up what you have in here in the considerations for Agile easily. You see, it says risk is considered when selecting the content of each iteration, and risk will also be identified, analyzed, and managed during each iteration. Additionally, the requirements are kept as a living document that is updated regularly, and work may be reprioritized as a project progresses based on an improved understanding of current risk exposure. It teaches you how to think about Agile in an adaptive environment. So I would recommend that you read that so that when you're going through all of these, you're just going to say, okay, what does a CTT say? Concepts, trends, tailoring, considerations for Agile. In every one of these tasks, there's not a single one that isn't implicitly covered in some way. Task 1, maybe not so much. Maybe that's more in the content of the main body of Chapter 2 and Chapter 1, see? With urgency, and maybe in the Agile Practice Guide, see? But my recommendation for you, for your exam, since that question said it's all over the place, yes, the material seems all over the place, but this will consolidate your thoughts. Lastly, going to the business environment, I would recommend pages 30, page 33 in the 6th edition is a good one to consolidate your thoughts about the benefits management plan, the benefit zone, and so on. And also look out for these words, these little cues that tell you when we're talking about business environment or when we're talking about one of these process things. Specifically, each task has a certain language that you can use to either infer the answer or you can tell what they're talking about. For example, going back to the aspect of risk that we were just talking about and task 15. See, 2 tasks, task 15 versus this one, task 3. Task 15 versus task 3. How do you know when you're in task 3? The language is usually could happen, may happen, but when you're in task 15, what is the language? The language is has happened. So you got to understand, it says recognize when a risk becomes an issue. This is one of the key things they're going to drum on your exam. And then understanding for task 3, your 5 strategies for negative risk or threats, your 5 strategies for positive risks or opportunities. You got to know it. It's going to help you. All right. Trust me, that stuff will help you. All right. And I believe we've gotten to the end of the questions we had for now. If you have any other questions, now would be a brilliant time to ask them in the chat. But I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm just going to show you this just in case your question has not emerged. If you ever have any questions going off in your head, I would recommend that you go to this link. I'm going to put this link in the chat. And you can go take a look at PMI's what should we call it? PMI's FAQs for the PMP exam. You can see general certification, all these questions. You can go ahead and just read and see if your question pops up here. Exam guidance, CCR requirements, anything, all right? If you have questions I haven't covered, just make sure, put them in the comment field when this video is published. All right, it's your buddy Phil here trying to help you make sense of this whole journey for your PMP exam. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully very soon. You take care. Bye for now.